Yo, 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 it's ODB from OLP. Thanks for coming back and rocking with us every single week. We really appreciate it. If you're listening via podcast app, certainly finish. But don't forget, you can also listen via via YouTube, and you can actually watch as well. I'm going to be sharing some photos this episode, so I want to get right into it. This episode, I'm going to try to streamline as best I can. The big shout out I always have to give is to our kinfolk. They've been with us since day one. Scraping with an IN. The Coast will be out there every June in Biloxi, supporting the great people at Scraping the Coast. So join us next year. This show is also in the Mini Truck Hall of Fame. Episode overview. So on this episode, Miggity Mike the Mayor, you might not see him. He's out gallivanting. Haven't talked to that guy in a couple weeks. It's hard to stop the gallivanting. Mike told me years ago it'll never stop. Rumor is about a week ago, someone saw some smoke bellowing out of a Silverado in Naples, and nobody knows where he's at. Supposedly he's left the state. We'll have to see where he turns up. Can't get him to return a text. We shall see. But on this episode, I have Robert Simmons. You may not know that name. Robert is a great guy. If you look at the thumbnail, he's a 720 guy. He's a mini trucker. He's an old school BMX guy. He's a freestyle bike guy. He's got a lot going on, and he's a good dude. We've had him on the list a couple of years, and I finally had a chance to sit down with him. So I'm going to be talking with him this episode. We'll get to that shortly. One thing I forgot to bring up with him, he's been sober for several years now, and he and I share that. I stopped drinking about just over a year and a half ago, and he said, yo, ODB, my life really improved when I stopped drinking, and I forgot to bring up that topic. I hate that I did. The last 12-pack that he bought, he still has the last beer in that 12-pack. I'm going to share that photo, and that beer, he wrote the date on it, and it represents that, that he stopped drinking. He didn't even finish that 12-pack. He said, you know what, I'm going to make a change. And I think that's important, not just if it's alcohol, because some people, you can drink and not have an issue, right? I don't think I really ever had that big of an issue. I think I just kind of overindulged because I did. I didn't go places and do it. I did it at my house. But, whether it's spending money or saving or spending more time with your family or getting to work earlier, whatever that thing, we all have a thing that we're trying to get better at. Some of us have more than others, I would assume. But whatever it is, you can make a change. So huge shout out to the kinfolk. Robert, we'll hear from him in just a few minutes. The episode overview is brought to you by Hammered Weekend Wear. That's HAMMERD, weekendwear.com. Good people. Of course, they've got gear for the guys, the ladies, and the children. They also have options for free shipping. You have to go to garagegearclothing.com. The holidays are coming up, folks. We're about halfway there. And if you want to get ahead, hit up Garage Gear Clothing, order some shirts, some stickers, some hats. I know the family will appreciate it. Next, we got breaking news. And what I'd like to do, and this is one of the things I love about podcasting, is I can, video podcasting rather, is I can share my screen. So this email came in on July 27th. And Lonnie even posted on the 28th that he woke up and, there were a lot of people freaking out, right? It's just what I'm summarizing. And you can see that if you're watching via YouTube. And he said, hey, a lot of people are saying that, we're not going to allow anything that's not a $250,000 bill. That he goes on to say, look, that's not how LST started, and that's not where we're going. So that's a great, clear message from Lonnie, one of the leaders at Lone Star Throwdown. If you look at this email here, I'm going to summarize it just in the middle in red. The website, LoneStarThrowdown.com, will open for submissions on September 7th. My guess is it's going to be 12 Central Time, which is 1 Eastern. And I will tell you this, it's very similar to what we've seen other events. Camp and Drag, it's no secret. Mini Nats, it's no secret. We've seen this, and I could tell you from what I understand, they're doing this to help show the local jurisdictions like, hey, we're in this together. We're also going to make a few changes to try to make it a better process and kind of keep out the, quote, riffraff. Now, I know there's going to be anxiety. There's going to be people that are, stressed. I'm not going to be able to make it. There's no way they're going to approve me. Listen, don't worry about the unknown, okay? If you really want to go, I guarantee you're probably going to get a ticket. You know what I mean? They are also going to limit, I think the way I read this is you're not able to transfer the registration to another vehicle without approval. They kind of had stopped the transfers already. I think that's going to further that process. So let's say I register a car or truck. I can't go, but I'm in the truck, and my buddies, we've got his car or truck on the trailer. Can we get said sticker? Again, I'm not going to get into all that because that's really slicing and dicing, but I'm just telling you, they have shut down the transfers in the past already. I just think bottom line is if you want to go September 7th, set your phone reminder, whether it's a reminder, a calendar invite, however you remember stuff. Set one of those and jump in on September 7th and try to get your registration submitted, right, with the photos and all of that. They've done a ton of back-end process work on the backside for LoneStarThrowdown.com. I think they're getting more internet hits than like Jordan is on the shoe releases, dude. So that's big stuff. And you know what? That makes me proud because being a part of this scene for 30 years and reading the magazine since 93-ish, maybe 92, I could tell you, we've all wanted this scene to blow up. This is great. There's a lot going on that's fantastic. Do you get every pair of shoes you might want? Do you get, every little toy that comes out? I miss out on a lot of this stuff. But I could tell you, look, put your anxiety to the side. Get ready. Lone Star Throwdown, September 7th is when the pre-reg opens. Also, I want to say this. I'm wearing my doggy style shirt, which paid homage to the Joe Cool artwork on the 1993 album by Snoop Dogg, one of the most anticipated in history. And Joe Cool recently passed away. Joe Cool was Snoop's cousin who did this artwork. And I would remind folks that on November 23rd, 1993, the album dropped. 30 years later, I posted a video with my collection of doggy style, including this artwork by Graphic Disorder. And Snoop reshared it, which that was like an awesome moment. And I've always respected Joe Cool. Like he did this and other stuff for Snoop and that family in terms of death row. So rest in peace to the OG. And hopefully Snoop will eventually drop Missionary, which has been talked about now for a couple of years, at least a year and a half. And I really hope that Joe Cool did some artwork for it. So we'll have to see. Last we heard, Dre was mixing the album when they talked about it on Jimmy Kimmel. So we'll have to see. The breaking news is brought to you by our kinfolk, as I mentioned, at Lone Star Throwdown. Again, set your reminder, September 7th. I would even check in the morning and just know that you're going to want to get your pre-reg in for Conroe February 2025. You best be there. We'll be there. The general updates. Hey, listen, this storm came through. And, a lot of us, especially Floridians, we kind of said, it's not even a Cat 1. Oh, now it's a Cat 1. No big deal. Been there, done that. I highly encourage people, take heed to what's going on in your community, okay? This storm dumped a ton of rain. A buddy of mine lives in Sarasota. He's not even in a flood zone. I double-checked it. And he had water protruding into his home, okay? Ruining his wood floors that he worked a lot for. And a lot of people don't have flood insurance, right? I'm not in the flood zone. Don't really need it. Who cares, right? All I'm saying is, look, take heed. I hope that you guys are safe, your friends and family. This storm was making its way through Florida, to Georgia, to the Carolinas. A lot of people are just getting pelted with rain. And that's good for some people. We need it. But at the same time, there are people that are out there struggling. So keep that in mind. I know a lot of people joke about, storms and this and that. Listen, when something impacts you, whether it's health related or a storm or something in life negatively impacts you, your kind of radars usually go up, right? And your antennas, and you're like, okay, wait, now I'm impacted. Now I see what people are going through. So keep that in mind. The general updates brought to you by our kinfolk at Southeast Mini Truckin Nationals, also known as Mini Nats, will be out there next April for the 31st annual Southeast Mini Truckin Nats in Maggie Valley, North Carolina, typically the third weekend in April every year. I got one question for everyone. Even though Miggity Mike the Mayor is out, are you ready for the trivia? So all the Mini Truckin Syndicate out there, the syndicate in general, the listeners, that's you guys. I really appreciate all the support. And I've got a fun one for you. This one might bring you back, might blow your mind. But if Mike was here, I would ask him if he could name any 5 characters from the hit TV show. Call it a cult classic, Mike. Do whatever you want. Name 5 characters from Saved by the Bell. Any 5 characters from any seasons. It doesn't matter. And if you think about, you had the cool preppy dude, you had the wrestling dude, you had the nerdy dude, you had the super hot chick, you had the other hot chick, you had another chick, you had the principal, you had some other characters as well. I know you can at least name one, right? The guy that had the big brick phone. What was his name? Zach Morris. He's probably my favorite character on the show. But think about this. You got Screech, Slater, Lisa, Mr. Belding, Jesse, Zach, and Kelly. There's a few for you. And who from my era didn't remember waking up on Saturday morning watching Saved by the Bell? Now, I got a bonus for you here that I'm going to ask in a second. But this might blow your mind. I know it blows my mind. How many seasons of the original Saved by the Bell do you think that there were? I said this many moons ago, many episodes ago. How many seasons for the original show, right? No spinoff. The original Saved by the Bell show. Yeah. 4 seasons. Okay. August 20th, 1989 to May 22nd, 1993. That is just like, to me, 4 seasons. It seems like, wow, you could watch those episodes on and on and on. Now, there were spinoff shows. I get it. Okay. But if you really think about it, there's a total list of 86, only 86 episodes for the original run. Now, here's the bonus question. So this is the honor system. We got Mike's binder over here. I'm going to shred it pretty soon here again. But what was the original name of the show prior to being called Saved by the Bell? Now, you could call this a spinoff, or you could call this a rework of the show. But this show was called something different prior to Saved by the Bell. Now, a big shout out to our homie, Joey Whitby in Arizona. Chad Luke knows. He's been there. Joey, when he hears Mike fretting around about these, and he doesn't know the most basic answers, Joey, we always talk about this, he is pounding on his dash, dude. I think he's got an anger issue. And Chad knows it. Chad's seen it. It's almost like the Incredible Hulk, right? You have David Banner, and you have, Lou Ferrigno, right? You have the 2 guys. But what I will tell you is Joey certainly has his dash almost ripped out. And there's a photo floating around of him holding the dash, ready to throw it, kind of Mr. T-ish. But we're trying to get our hands on that photo. We're going to share that with everyone. So shout out to Chad Luke. He's seen the anger in Joey Whitby's eyes, like David Banner-ish, dude. You know what I'm saying? Cut off jean shorts and all, dude. Ripping apart. Guy's an animal. But Saved by the Bell was originally called Good Morning Miss Bliss. So basically, the Good Morning Miss Bliss, you might remember her character. After about 12, 13, 14 episodes, it was canceled. And what that led to was a rework, spinoff, whatever you want to call it. I think the show was kind of reworked because they needed something for Saturday morning. And that's how we end up with Saved by the Bell. The other thing is there's, of course, a couple of spinoffs. You had the college years and that type of stuff. But basically, that late 80s, 89 in through the 90s, if you're a 90s kid, I'm an 80s and a 90s kid. Certainly, you know the show. The trivia this week is brought to you by our kinfolk at Garage Gear Clothing. You can visit garagegearclothing.com. They have free shipping options. They also attend shows nationwide. They're good people. They got the clothing on lock for the dudes. the ladies and the kids. If you're looking to get ahead on the holiday Christmas shopping, hit up GarageGearClothing.com. Let them know that OLP sent you. They got a beautiful website with tons of merch. They ship it out usually within a couple of days, other than when they're at a show. They're good people. Let Lonnie, Radar, Crystal, and the entire team, we know Crystal's over there, pulling the puppet strings. Let them know that OLP sent you. Okay, next we got the scene updates. So this really for this week is I'm going to cover a few shows. I'm going to kind of hodgepodge a few here, right? Some I talk about, some I've forgotten to talk about, some I need to talk about more. But you have this weekend the Spark Show, the 9th, 10th, and 11th. If you're going to Sevierville, Tennessee, have fun up there. There's the biggest Buc-ee's in the world in that vicinity. You can go check that out, get a breakfast burrito for me if you don't mind. I can't make it this year. I'm doing a local thing with our Severed, Florida, which, by the way, if you're in Tampa and you happen to hear this on Friday, come on out. Saturday night, it's a free cruise down by Tampa Stadium, also known as Raymond James Stadium. We're going to be down there hanging out. You have Dropped Out Show. I don't talk about the show enough. I need to talk about it more. Perry is a great guy. This is the 24th and 25th of August. And Perry, don't kill me. I don't have my phone in front of me. I think it's Tennessee. But Dropped, D-R-O-P-P-E-D, Dropped Out Show. Look them up on Instagram or Facebook. I know it's Jay Bell's homie. He's a good dude, and I got to get him on to talk about this event. You have Sparks in the Park, not to be confused with the Spark Show. Sparks in the Park is the DeCorvers. I've been practicing the Carney on the last name, and I'm struggling a little bit, but I think it's Dizor, Kizor, Vizor. I got to get that last syllable down a little bit. Dizor, Kizor, Vizor. But David DeCorver and Kim, the DeCorvers, they throw Sparks in the Park. It's 9:14 and 9:15. Very much like Good Morning, Miss Bliss. This show was also reworked because if you recall, it used to be in April. They kind of reworked it, and now it's every September. This year, it's happened to fall in the 14th and 15th in Niceville, Florida, at the Mullet Festival grounds. Next, we got the freaking weekend. Good people. We're going to be out there having a good time. The 20th, 21st, 22nd of September in Biloxi. The Freaking Weekend Show. You can find more information in thefreakingweekend.com. We can't wait to be out there. We just had a trip on to talk about this awesome event. So many of you went out there last year and had a great time. Mike and I will both be there. We'll be vending. We'll be slinging merch. We'll be having a good time. And come join me. Let's have a liquid death together. You know what I'm saying? And we'll just down one. I mean, just guzzle it like there's no tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? Also, I want to give a huge shout out again, and just kind of a hodgepodge of shows I wanted to hit upon is the Relaxed All-Star event. It is back. Many of you went to it for years in, was it Lebanon? But the Relaxed All-Star event was, this year is going to be October 25th, 26th, 27th. Okay, so we're rooting for those guys. Of course, that is going to be the weekend before SEMA, but it is what it is. I think a lot of people are going to go out, and they're going to have a good time. Also, the Mini Truck Hall of Fame, typically that induction ceremony is the Monday, SEMA week. It's that Monday. So I don't want to get the cart in front of the horse in front of the cart. I want to get Radar on to kind of confirm everything, but my understanding is that will still continue. Of course, I'm on the committee, but I know Radar is heading a lot of that up. So I need to kind of get in there and kind of figure out what's going on. But so many of you have already said, hey, I'm going to be in Vegas for SEMA or just that Monday. I'm looking to go out there just for Monday, Tuesday, gallivant around some, try to catch up with Mike's gallivanting. And, of course, oh, by the way, hit the Mini Truck Hall of Fame. The scene updates this week is brought to you by our kinfolk at ColoradoCustom.com. If you need wheels, billet steering wheel, or I think they still dabble with the billet rearview mirrors, look no further than the best in the business, ColoradoCustom.com. Let Michael and team know that ODB and fam sent you. Hut 1, Hut 2, Hut 3, Hut, Old Dirty Ballard, live and uncut. Of course, that goes back to 36 Chambers, the original Wu-Tang album, when ODB starts one of his verses like that, as Matt Middleton and many of you know. But here's my message this week. It's very similar to what I've said in the past. If you're feuding with a family member, a coworker, a brother, a sister, a friend, a neighbor, do whatever you can to bury the hatchet. I've heard people go, I had a buddy and he passed away and I never got to bury the hatchet. Or I got a buddy and, they just found out they're terminally ill and they're going to pass away. And, we hung out and, man, I wish I would have buried the hatchet 20 years ago. Some of you have even come to me and said, yo, Jay, I took heed. I listened to what you said and I buried the hatchet. Joe Schmo and I may not be best friends, but we buried the hatchet. We shook hands. We're on level ground now. There's no tension. We don't go to shows and eyeballing each other like gangsters, like we're going to kick each other's ass. It's a mutual respect, Not there's 330 million people in the US. We're not going to all get along, right? That's 100%. But it's the least you can do, especially if you used to call someone a homie, a brother, a sister, a club mate. Bury the effing hatchet, dude. It's worth it. You're going to feel better. I'm not going to say that you're necessarily going to sleep better at night. You probably will. But I don't know how good you sleep anyways. I got a new pillow, and I sleep great. But you know what I'm saying. Much love to all of you guys, and that kind of dovetails into my closing words is, this week I would just ask that if you can, follow us on YouTube. I don't know how much longer I'm going to continue to do stuff with, Facebook and Instagram, because I put a lot of time into it. I don't even want to be negative, but I put a lot of time into the captions, into the videos, splicing and doing all this. And it's not even the audience. It's just the way the platform has gotten is there's so many people on it and it's hard to get traction, and I've never done my videos, to go, oh, I want to have the most views or I want to have the biggest page. You guys know how I feel like that or feel about that. I'm not going to rehash all that. But when you put so much effort in and you see 100 people see your video or 200 people see it, you go, okay, well, that's cool. But when you're putting in so much and you're like, man, is it really worth it? So I think I might lean in more to YouTube. And I like this platform a lot. People can come here, they can comment, they can watch when they want, they can watch as much as they want. And it's just a little bit more manageable. So we'll have to see. In about 365 days, we're going to cross the start-finish line into our 10th year. So right now we just we passed go. We did not collect $200. I don't see any money around here. We passed go. We did not collect money, but we're now on our 9th year, right? We started in late July, very beginning of August of 2015. So when we hit August 1st, 2025, that's boom, the 10-year mark. So we'll have to see where it continues. But I will just say you can follow me on Substack, ODB's Life. You can Google it, Substack, ODB with an S, Life. You can also follow us on YouTube. So much more coming. Podcast updates. Hey, the website is updated. Go out there, buy some merch. That definitely helps us out. I will tell you this, not to get into the weeds, but just the podcasting hosting, the website hosting, the program that I pay to be able to do this video content and all the miscellaneous little expenses, it comes up to a lot. So rest assured, when you buy something, it's not us. Like I never take the money and go, oh, look, I'm going to go buy me a new, this is all out of my own money. And by the way, I opened one of these later with Robert. So stick with me. But, I never did it to become rich off of it, off the scene. That's not what I wanted to do. I do it because it's out of passion. But at the same time, it's like, how do I pivot and move? What's the next move? Do I keep doing videos? Do I keep throwing all this old school stuff at everybody? And most people are like, I don't care about the old school stuff. I want the now stuff. I don't know. So my brain, as Mike always knows, is ever going. So when I'm sleeping at night, I'm actually cooking up ideas. So if you got some ideas, email me, ourlifestylepodcast@gmail.com. Podcast updates. Again, the website is updated. I want to thank The Freaking Weekend. This interview that I'm about to dovetail into is brought to you by The Freaking Weekend. And Trip is a great guy. So many of you, I've hit you up and I said, hey, man, please pre-register for The Freaking Weekend. And you come back and say, yo, I'm already pre-registered. I got 3 rides there. That's what Robert told me, Robert and Roxy. So things are great. We can't wait to be out there. Come down to the Dirty South in, I say the Dirty South. It's clean there, trust me. But come down to the Dirty, Dirty South in September. Hang out with us in Biloxi. We will have a good time. Much love to our title sponsor, Scraping the Coast. We really appreciate you. And I want to give a huge shout out to AccuAir. Local Rides with a Z mag, and CNS Metalworks, Chris Burns. Huge shout out to him and Ruben and their team. If you want to support Local Rides with a Z, just Google or go to Local Rides, RIDEZ mag, and buy an issue. Trust me, it's homegrown. It's very, very good, and you could show Bill and team a little bit of love. I appreciate Bill for what he does for our scene. Stay tuned. We are going to jump right now into the interview with Robert. We talk about so much, and Roxy also makes a cameo. Be safe, take heed, and sign up via your local jurisdiction for reminders if you need to, like me. I want to know what's going on. Stay safe out there, everyone. We out here. Peace. Yo, I'm super excited to sit down with my friend Robert Simmons, my man from the South, Alabama. We're going to talk all about it, I'm sure. But, dude, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us.
Oh, man, I appreciate you. Thanks for having me.
I knew no problem. I know it's been a long time coming, but I figured now was a good time.
Hey, I'm just thankful for you having me on here, man. I appreciate it.
For sure, Robert. So we're going to talk a lot about, just for anybody that's new to this podcast, we're going to get into this interview now, and we're going to talk about some old school BMX. We're going to talk about trucks, of course, and we're going to let kind of Robert be able to tell his story, which is a very, I think, an awesome story that many of you are going to appreciate, because you kind of even eclipsed me in the scene, not to make you sound old, but by at least 10 years, so I think that's really cool. But we have to start off first, though, and I got to ask you this. Just tell us a little bit about you. Who is Robert Simmons?
Okay. We're down here in Mobile, Alabama. So got into bikes probably in maybe 82, maybe. And it was like BMX then. So we did BMX to probably like 85 or 6, and then we got into the freestyle.
Okay.
And then we did that for a while, and then that kind of escalated, man. I got pretty good at it, and then we started going to contests, and it just kind of, the racing thing wasn't my thing, but the freestyle was, just kind of came more natural, seemed like. But everything was so different the way back then compared to now,
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of jump into this even a little bit earlier than I normally do in terms of photos here. So I would ask that if you're listening to us on a podcast app, you can get a kind of a further enriched experience if you jump over on YouTube. But like in this photo, as an example, kind of circa what year, maybe what age were you here, Robert?
Okay, that was like probably right at the 87, 88.
Yep.
I was probably maybe 14 there, 14 or 15 maybe.
And one thing I got to say I'm jealous of, when we were younger, we'd look at the BMX and skateboarding magazines. We would see, like in California a lot, you'd have guys with half pipes.
Yeah.
A neighbor of mine, believe it or not, Larry Parker, he had a mini ramp in his backyard. His I think stepdad helped him build it. But here you basically have a pretty big quarter pipe.
Yeah, that was like 8 by 8 quarter. And then we ended up making it into like a fish hook, which had a roll in on the other side, and then it had a flat bottom, so you wouldn't have to ride through the driveway or the grass. You could just, it's like a roll in.
That's OG. Now, the outfit that you have on, the importance of that name. Yeah. I don't know that everybody knows that he's really credited with the godfather of creating that whole genre of the sport.
Yeah, Bob Harrow.
Yep.
I still have that suit, man. It's still in perfect condition.
Dude, everybody's going to be calling your phone now at 2 a.m. The eBayers asking you to sell it.
I don't think it'll fit anymore, but I still have it.
Right. We'll have to ask Roxy if it still fits. She'll tell us the truth. But in all seriousness, it's crazy if you think back when I was a child reading BMX Plus and all of the other kind of offshoots, right? All these different magazines. That's what got me to the newsstand, right? And I talked about this in the past. Like my parents would go to the grocery store, and I kind of disliked going. But then I realized, if you dislike something, try to find something good in it. And I was like, well, you know what? I can go hang out by the magazine rack. And like many of us, I started like in the video game, like reading about, Mario and this and that, Nintendo Power, and that, you get a little older and that morphs into BMX and scooters and skateboarding. And then it kind of was the natural progression to trucks. But isn't it so cool, Robert, that when you think back to that era with like the colors and the outfits and the helmets and all that, that stuff is like gold now, as you know.
It is, man. It was so crazy. Like all the stuff we had back then, the stuff that I gave away or threw away. Now you would, man. Like you say, it's gold.
Shout out to my friend Sean at Rad BMX Builds, great guy. And Sean recently had acquired the closest that we had ever seen to a Christian Hollings bike, right, from the Rad movie.
Yeah, see
and you saw that as well. What was ironic was a lot of people were saying, "Oh, that can't be. There's no way. How would you have a bike with a chain guard on it? That's dumb." Yeah, sure. We took them all off back then.
Yeah.
And I had to keep chiming in on some of the comments, and I had to tell the people, if you watch the video, you'll see that he basically the guy that he got it from, something happened, like a friend had rode it, got hurt, and then was like frustrated, or the parents like put it up. And those are kind of some of those what we refer to as like a holy grail find.
Yeah, no doubt, for sure.
Yeah. Did you see a few years ago when it's back on eBay? I think even now there's that GT Performer that was new in box.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and it was like it was available, and then someone bought it, and they were going to flip it, and it's like it's hovered around like a $15,000 to $20,000 price range. I mean, just insane.
That is insane.
But now the box has been open, man. I don't think I want it.
Yeah, deal though.
Just kidding, right?
Yeah.
So again, we're talking with Robert Simmons, and Robert, just to make sure, because I don't want to mess this up, it's Simmons SimmonsPaint on Instagram, right?
Correct.
Simmons Paint. Now, we jumped right into this interview, which I certainly appreciate, because we're getting right to the meat and potatoes, and that's what the listeners want. In this photo, kind of give us a little bit of background. We're talking about your early days in the BMX and kind of freestyle world.
Okay, so what's going on there is like, so we used to be, when I was into that ramp you see was actually portable. You could set it up in like 3 minutes. It was on a trailer. You just pull 2 pins and then do these jacks and it's set up. But we had this thing going. Back then it was like Say No to Drugs. And I would get like these things. They would pay us to go to like different events. And then I would even get out of school. We would go to schools and do Say No to Drugs. And I think that was a Azalea Festival or something. But yeah, we were on some kind of campaign to say no to drugs, and we'd go to all these schools and talk about it and tell them that they could spend their time doing stuff like that instead of doing drugs. And my dad had built that ramp in 87, maybe, and I still have that ramp to this day. It's held up all these years. We just need to resheet it.
And I thought I was a pack rat, man. I finally met someone that eclipsed me. I appreciate that, Robert. No, I love this. I love this stuff. But here's the ironic thing too. And I still, it's so neat, right? Because we're talking now and the Olympics are still going on. But if you think about how far it's come, right, with skateboarding and bicycling now in the Olympics, and you think back to those days, a lot of people, even Rodney Mullen, right? His parents, like his dad, I think, stopped him from skating because it was like, okay, dude, you're obsessed with this, right? Yeah. And there was always this misnomer that it was like, they're dropouts, they're druggies, they're loners, all that stuff. But it's the furthest from the truth. And what's neat is, like, you kind of even proved, even back in the 80s in the heyday, you had schools going, hey, come on out to us and kind of talk to some of the youth and let them know you don't have to go do that kind of stuff. You can do this. Yeah.
Like I say, it was like a Say No to Drugs thing. And we got like excuse absence to do that stuff from our school. And we went all over. Even in Florida, we went like Pensacola, and we went into Mississippi a little bit. But yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, before we jump into the truck stuff, right? Basically, I wanted to mention this. I know Sean Randall's been through a lot. He's kind of up your way. When I talk to Sean over the years and kind of become friends with him, he's a good dude. If he hears this, huge shout out to you, Sean. I hope things are going well. But Sean even remembers when Rad was getting ready to come out in March of '86. And Bill Allen and some of the riders were on this publicity type tour, right? And you probably remember some of the stuff coming through. I unfortunately don't remember doing, participating in any of that. I was in Land O'Lakes. Did you get a chance? I mean, you did way more than I could have ever imagined, right? Because, I mean, you had a ramp, you did this thing with the schools and stuff. Do you remember ever going to any skate parks or bike parks or partaking in any of that?
So we had a skate park in Mobile, but it closed down in like I guess right as it was starting to hit the heyday, it closed down in like 86 or 87.
Yeah, yeah.
And but anyway, some years later, we got back into the bike stuff in probably the late 90s. So probably 98, 99. They built a thing here called Sports Extreme, and they built an indoor skate park. And we got back to it, and we did that for some years. And they closed it down probably 3 years after that. But yeah, we got back into it in the late 90s and did it till about 2002, 2001.
Yeah, very interesting. And it's ironic when you watch a lot of these. For anybody that hasn't watched the Tony Hawk documentary on HBO, I highly suggest, get HBO for a month, whatever you got to do. It's amazing. But it also blew my mind, right? We came up in such an epic era, the late 70s, mid to late 70s into the 80s. And when you think about, we would often hear in the late 80s, you'll hear Tony Hawk and all these pros talk about how skateboarding fell off. Right. And it's kind of coinciding with what you just said with that park closing.
Yeah.
It was almost unfathomable for me because I wasn't a pro. I wasn't even good. I mean, I was always interested in that. I read the magazines and stuff, but I almost didn't even believe that. And then, it's like, I don't know if it was the rise of the video games, because remember the Atari was big, and then in the mid 80s, there was the downfall of the video game industry. And then it kind of came back with a roar with Nintendo. But it was always interesting to me that skateboarding even fell off, and now it's arguably the biggest it's ever been.
Yeah, it did, and the bike stuff did, and it was around about 90. I'd say about 93. It kind of dropped off, and then the way the BMX picked back up is, Matt Hoffman, he kept it going. He had a portable ramp that he drug around with a semi, and they set up a half pipe, doing fairs and stuff like that, and he kind of kept it going. And then when I think 96, when the X Games came back. That's when it started to pick back up, Man,
there's a throwback term for you right there, Robert. When my buddy, I never had the original PlayStation. He had the original PlayStation, and we played. His parents would buy him all the games. Shout out to John. And he had that original Xbox, X Games game, or not Xbox. It was PlayStation X game, and we would do this little downhill type thing, bro. We played that till there was no playing anymore, but. It is very cool, like you said, how there have been ebb and flows. I know I'm guilty these days of sometimes going, oh, well, kids don't understand these days. And I think that's each generation has their version of that. But I do think even imagine you were a pro skater and that stuff dried up in the late 80s into the 90s. And you're like, what am I going to do for a job?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's I think things like that even still kind of happen. Because if you think about even music, there's a documentary that Eminem recently produced, and I haven't watched it, where it was talking about when music became free, right? And you had all these artists that, they loved making music and stuff, and it got to a point where everyone was bootlegging it and things like that. So it's weird how no matter what you're into, there can kind of be those ebb and flows.
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Yep. Now, I want to go back to the bikes in a little bit because I want to talk about some of the bikes that you own today and some of your collection. But I do want to talk a little bit about the early days. There's a photo that I'm going to show here in a moment if you're watching on YouTube of the first vehicle that you built, I believe, with your dad. Talk to us, how did you get involved in trucks? Was it that normal morph from, the bikes and skateboarding, kind of that whole culture into, hey, here's a truck, son?
Yeah, it was kind of from the bikes, because back in that day, you would see in the magazines, you would see in the background, you would see Mike Dominguez's truck. It's a skate park with a bike in the back. And then you would see Brian Blyther with the Volkswagen Bugs. And, all those BMX guys had these custom cars. And so it was well, that's the way it's got to go. That's what we got to get into,
Yep. And if you think about what Radar did from a West Coast influence perspective, right? And we could slice and dice this, East Coast, West Coast, but I think so much, I remember as a child, somehow we had cable TV in Land O'Lakes, mid 80s. I was watching USA, G.I. Joes after school every day. But I would watch Hot Summer Nights, ESPN. It was this obscure show, and it's hard to even find any info, but it was street skating. It was the air gliding deals right on the surfboards, whatever that's called. I always forget what that's called. And you would see all of that. And to me, it goes back to even the magazines, because there was kind of this West Coast feel. and you would have these guys that were like, man, I got a slammed bug or I got a slammed mini truck. And it maybe didn't cost them much, but that was like a part of who they were, right? It was in their blood, to have something a little different.
For sure. And then speaking of the magazines and all that, what's so crazy is like what people don't understand. Like now, they can just Google something or it's right there. When we had the magazines, we had to wait like 3 months to see.
Yep.
It was like so behind. When we got it, that had already happened 3 months or 2 months prior.
Oh yeah.
So that was like the biggest thing, waiting to see what's next.
Yeah, and when you think about us having Damien on, and you talked about we talked about Radical Rick and how much that meant to like a guy like you or I as a young child reading that little comic strip, right? And how big that is. It's neat because he even talked about having to drive into like downtown Los Angeles to drop off, and you think about now, everything is internet, right? Dude, there you go, man. Look at that.
Yeah, quick little story about him. So he called me on my 50th birthday and wished me happy birthday. Roxy rigged that up.
I was going to say, I wonder if Roxy was involved. That, you know what? She's a good lady.
She's is. And she had Eddie Fiola call me also.
And we had you guys, we did a quick little...
you called me too. That's right. Right afterwards. Because I was like, man, this just keeps getting better.
I think you already know this, but my advice to you is make sure you take care of Roxy.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
No,
you and Mike call me also.
Now, think about this. The little showroom that you're in, we didn't get a chance to kind of really set this up, but this is the hard work and determination. And I think our interview, I kind of jumped ahead a little bit, I wanted to kind of bring you back and talk a little bit about it, but we'll get to it. But just to set the setting for everyone, you are at your business there, and it's a thing, a labor of love that you guys have put in your little showroom there. So just maybe talk to us a minute about your place of business there.
So we're 720 Industries. We're, a paint and body shop, mostly commercial stuff, but we do custom stuff. We do insurance stuff. But I'm sitting in our lobby, and we got it set up like, all the throwback stuff from the 80s, like in the 70s, Evel Knievel, some BMX bikes, three-wheelers, just a bunch of old stuff. But we wanted a different environment when you come in here. We didn't want just like the regular body shop feel, a desk, and somebody sitting at the desk. Oh, can I help you? Hand me your money. We want you to feel like just spark up some memories when you come in here.
Yeah, hunting might be cool, but we got Lowrider magazines here. Is that okay, y'all?
Exactly. So we're just trying to do something a little different.
Yeah, excellent. And that's a lot of hard work and determination. So I want to pull this photo up. So you kind of started to talk about that natural progression, right? That so many of us experience, right? From the whether you want to call it the video games into the BMX, I keep saying skateboarding. I know you were more on the BMX side, but talk to us about this project here. And by the way, is your dad still with us, or he passed on? Right?
He passed away probably 10 years ago.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
13 years ago.
Got it.
Yeah, man. So that was probably, we took that to a show in '88. It was can't remember the exact year, but it was 70-something Ford Courier, and we extended it, made it a king cab, and it had a Targa top, a S10 front bumper, Ford Escort headlight and grill, 16-inch wheels, which that was pretty big for back then, even though they were steel wheels. It was still 16s.
And you kept them clean, right? 16s.
They were 16s, but I kept them clean.
Right.
It had a Toyota Supra Dash in it. It had a V6 motor out of a Ford Ranger at the time. It had a bed that went up and back and tilted, dumped straight back. It wasn't a Z-Rack, but it was pretty cool. It was actually just kind of, like I say, '88. I think the cylinders we used were off a forklift. They were huge. But it was cool for what it was back then. And it was a learning thing for me also. And then just, being there, him right there building it with me, that was awesome, because he's like, when you're 15, we'll start building it. When you're 16, you'll be able to drive it. So that's kind of the way I did with my son. I said, when you turn 15, we'll find you something and we'll work on it. When you turn 16, it'll be ready,
Yeah, and you credit, what was your dad's name?
Sonny.
And you credit your dad, Sonny, with like basically teaching and helping kind of bring your skill set along in that day, like that hands-on learning.
Yeah, we grew up in the fabrication and the painting, me and my brother. I have a younger brother, 3 years younger than me. But, yeah, he taught us at an early age. We were over there at his shop probably 13, 12, sweeping the floor. He had his prime and stuff. He taught us a trade, and that's how I support my family today, on what he taught me and my brother.
That's a good feeling, man. That hardworking kind of blue blood American, right? When you think about it, it's get up every day, strap the boots on, and go to work, right, and get it done. And I think that's something that, we could debate about this for to the end of the time, but I think it's just something that it's got to be at the core of who you are. Getting up, like my dad was a big person on, like, go to work every day. Even if you may not feel good, just get up and go and give it a try. And I mean, sure, some days you can't.
Yeah.
You might be really sick, but don't call out sick all the time and do those kind of things. Again, that hardworking, blue-blooded American kind of in you guys' veins.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Now, I will say this. I mean, Mike probably won't listen, but if you had this truck now next to Banana Hammock, I really think he would not. There's no. I mean, dude, you had more mods than him 30 years ago, and that's the thing that Mike's just got to understand. He's got to step it up. He might need to get with 720 Industries, man. Right?
Yeah.
Whatever you do, if he calls you, don't answer. Not just kidding. So talk to us a little bit about, right? So you got the Ford Courier, and we kind of laid the foundation, and there's that, right? And there's that piece of your life. What does it morph in from there? Because a lot of guys, some guys end up keeping their first ride. Others, they've got to punt it to make way for the next thing. So what was kind of the progression from there, Robert?
So we never completely finished it, and we got pretty close, and somebody came along and offered us some like crazy amount for it. I don't remember the amount, but my dad's like, well, you can keep it if you want to, but I would sell it, and then you can buy you a newer one. So actually, we sold that and ended up getting, I think, I don't remember what I got after that, but then ended up with we ended up buying a 90 Mazda brand new.
Yeah, and this is great because, I mean, you and shout out to your wife, Roxy, really kind of pulled some of the stuff together. And like I tell people, this is a whole nother element when you're podcasting, to be able to pull the stuff together ahead of time, to be able to showcase it. But keep me honest, right? So you're talking about this red Mazda here.
Yeah, that was we bought that brand new in 1990. I think it had 7 miles on it. And you can see there, it still has the dealer tag on it. We put small tires on it, lowered it, within the first few days.
Yeah, and something that I think I gotta say about your pops, rest in peace to Sonny, is if you think back, like when that photo of him, it reminds me a lot of my dad. He worked for the phone company. My dad had he had a beard every day of my life, right? I mean, I think if you put them next to each other and those, they have a lot of resemblances.
Yeah,
but
for sure, definitely. I can see that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And when you think back to like this era, right? This is something that I appreciate. Like your dad, and even my dad, he may not have fully understood, like, why do you guys want to, he never understood. He never really said, why do you guys lower the trucks? I think he was more like, why are you so into this rap music? That was kind of weird, he thought. But your dad and my dad, right, and so many dads out there, they didn't judge us and go, oh, you're being stupid. I mean, maybe they did a little bit, but they let us lower our trucks, even though they're probably scratching their head, going, "What the hell are these kids doing?" But your dad understood it more than my dad. Probably.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was super supportive. Like I had other friends, when they would buy cars, their parents didn't want them to do anything to it.
You're right. You're gonna ruin it.
My dad's like, yeah, let's do it. He was super supportive.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing because even me, when my son was younger, I was always like, don't do that, don't touch that, don't touch that. And when we think back, many of us joke about the 80s growing up. I was joking with my coworker yesterday about, no car seats and, our parents left us in the car and all this stuff, right? Sure. When they went to the store. So it's like, I do think we've gotten smarter as a society, but at the same time, you do have to kind of let your kids find a little bit of a way on what they like. We can't tell them, no, don't touch that. No, don't do that. It's like, I think finding their way a little bit is important.
Yeah, you can be protective of them, but don't keep them in a bubble,
Right, there you go.
That's the same truck, the red one. That's some years later. I had the Toyota front end. I had some stuff gold plated. Had hydraulics. Those were Dayton's.
Now, my brother Tim Davis from RA would appreciate this because he and I often reminisce about this era. And if you think back to like when I was watching, VH1, but mostly MTV, and we're watching Today Was a Good Day video, right? And you're seeing these Impalas, and you're seeing the wire wheels, and you're seeing the gold, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of, to me, kind of some of that West Coast influence because this specific era, I think, had a lot to do with the West Coast, the gold plating and things, the lowrider genre, if you will. And I just think it's awesome that it made its way all the way across.
Yeah, I think that's from either. I think that's 95 maybe.
Got it.
94, 95 maybe.
Now, do Randy and Eric Felber and so many of us, we go back and forth on what we call this thing on the back, on top of the bed.
Yeah.
What would you call it in Alabama?
I don't know. We call them different things. We call it a camper shell. We call it a topper.
There you go.
Now
I'm voting for topper.
now now it's like, wish I would have hung on to that. I think that was like a Lear.
Yep.
I think the windows popped out separate, like sideways.
Yes.
I want to think. Yeah, man, that'd be gold to somebody right now.
Well, think about Randy, like with Two Ballistic. It's like, still don't even know how he found that dang.
Oh.
It is a topper. A lot of guys want to call them shells and camper shells, but I'm a firm believer that they are toppers.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I know if you're on YouTube right now, you're kind of seeing me scroll through some of these things. What I'm trying to do is kind of like jog your memory a little bit. So this was another version of that Mazda. Where did you kind of go from there? Because I'm seeing like a Firebird. I'm seeing some other stuff as well.
Yeah, so the black and white picture, that was probably before the Daytons.
Got it. Okay.
And the thing with that, which is so crazy, like, so back in that time, there wasn't a lot of availability of like drop spindles or stuff like that. So what we did on that, it wasn't body drop, but it pretty much almost laid the pinch molding. So what we did, we actually cut the bottom of the frame off and welded flat bar to the side.
Wow.
And then we took we flipped the ball joints over the A-arms and put spacers on it. I don't know how safe that was, but it worked. It put it on down there.
Yeah. Now, was this like in the era of bags, or do you have air shocks on it here?
No, it actually had hydraulics there.
Oh, hydraulics. Okay, that's right. Okay, yep. I got to remember hydraulics came before, Gendro and some of these guys putting bags on the trucks.
Yeah.
Yep. So you basically you get your feet wet a little bit with the Ford Courier. You get into a brand new Mazda red that you guys buy locally with 7 miles on it. How long do you last in the Mazda? What ends up happening with that?
So I stayed in the Mazda to about 96. So 6 years I had it. I had a walkthrough. It had 415s in it. So anyway, I got rid of that, and then I got a 64 Bel Air, and I put 4 pumps on it, hydraulics, and I used the same Daytons that were on the Mazda. So all we did was I bought the adapter to go from 6 lug to 5 lug.
Yep.
And I had the same wheels off of the Mazda on there.
Again, although hopping, I know, wasn't just Arizona and California, but if you think back to the, Eazy-E kind of coining that term, 6FO, right, in the late 80s with NWA, into the Chronic and Ice Cube, Today Was a Good Day. A lot of that stuff, I think, really kind of bleeds over from the West Coast, and that's super cool. Like, you literally have a photo of your four-door Impala hopping on the rear. That's pretty awesome.
So actually that car, and then I kept that probably a year, and then I ended up selling it to Sean Randall, actually.
Really? So you guys, your roots do go back that far?
Yeah, we go back to early 90s.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. So as a car guy, right, as someone that it's clear, like you made it super clear, it's like it's in your blood. Do you enjoy the Impala? Are you going, man, I want to be a lowrider guy? Like, where do you go from there?
So after that car sold, this was about the time when like big rims were coming around. And I'm not talking about like donk rims. I'm talking like when the 20s first came out and stuff like that. So I went from that to a Trans Am.
And that was one of the photos I was kind of scrolling through. Kind of like my buddy Tony's got a really cool Trans Am that he's been building a long time. Was Smokey and the Bandit? I mean, I know this is kind of a cliche question, but was that an influence on you a little bit?
Yeah, somewhat. So the black Trans Am, that wasn't ours. That's just one we did when we had our. That's one we restored for somebody. But the Trans Am that I had after the Impala was like another body style. It was like a 96 or 5.
Got it.
Newer one, like a Ram Air.
Right, and being a car guy, being around paint and stuff, you're kind of like, okay, let me dabble a little bit over here, get into something maybe that you haven't owned, enjoy it a little bit. How did that go?
So I got into that, and we did that for a while. I had 2 of that body style, which they were 96 or 97s. I can't really remember, but we did that for a while, and then we got out of that, and then we actually got into the smoking embedded Trans Ams, kind of like the 720s now. kind of escalated. We had one, then we had three. So we had three at one time. We never had a black one, but we had blue, brown, and red. They were all
Wow.
they were all 78. So we were big into that. Just bled, Trans Am, everything. And then I don't know, just woke up one day and decided, well, just want to do something else, and we got rid of all of those. And then we didn't do anything for a while, and then full circle, we come around some years later, and now we're 720 blessed, I guess.
Wow, that's pretty cool. And it's neat to me though, like some guys have been in the mini trucks and that's it, right? But to me, like if you're a car person, it's like you can easily adapt into anything, right? And that's the cool thing, but it's like you kind of came back to your roots. So if you think about this, kind of drives me crazy sometimes. You know, we just talked a little bit about professionals that say skateboarding did kind of fall off, right? BMX did kind of fall off. There are people that say, well, you know, the mini truck scene's kind of like back, you know, it's back full force. And I'm kind of like, well, I've been going to shows since 96 and I haven't ever taken a break for the most part. I've been going to at least one show a year and I've never really saw it fall off, right? I mean, it was always big. Now, arguably now with everybody kind of getting a little older, trying to build the old school stuff, yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
But what brought you back from the Smokey and the Bandit type stuff or any other stuff you had going on in your life? What really brought you back into the minis?
Well, what's so crazy is like once you do it, it really never leaves you, you know? I mean, it's just, and we kind of didn't get back into it because everybody was getting into it. It's just like, that's the thing with people. So a lot of people do it because, oh man, it's a fad. So I can't be into mini trucks because this is not cool. I can't be into skateboarding because this is not cool. It's
Right.
cool as long as you want it to be cool. As long as
Yeah.
you do it, it's cool.
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess I just miss like, seems like out of all the vehicles we've had more fun with the mini trucks. It seems like you can be more creative
Sure.
with a mini truck versus, you know, just say a Corvette or, I mean, you can be creative with anything, but it just seems like with a mini, man, it's like it's like limitless of what you can do.
Yeah. If you think back to, you know, obviously the listeners, hopefully all of you have seen, you know, Class Act as an example, right? I was listening to Kid and Play earlier. I used one of their tracks for a reel today. And if you think back to that era, and even if you go back to like, I was really big into Crisscross because they had this influence from the West Coast, right? With Jermaine Dupri producing. And if you look back at some of their videos, and one of the videos for some reason is gone, you cannot find it on YouTube, but I think they filmed it in Atlanta and there's like a lowered Amigo in it, right? And there's some of them have lowriders and stuff.
Yeah.
But I think when you think back to that era, it's like, to your point, you could have like with Kid and Play that, you know, in that movie, they have a truck with I think it had a dancing bed, it had a topper, you know, it had hydraulics, it had the reverse offset wheels. Like you could do something really crazy like that versus if you had a 4-door little Impala and you were hanging out with the hot rod guys, they would think you were probably kind of crazy if you were going that far out, right? Because it's like, hey, you know, what are you doing over here? So I get where you're going.
It's kind of crazy down here in the South, you know. I mean, in California, it never really dropped off, you know.
Yep, for sure. So 720 Industries, right? Ever since I got a chance to meet you and your awesome family, and we'll make sure we give all of them a shout out. Maybe we'll get Roxy to even make a cameo in a few minutes. Ever since I've known you, you've been into these 720s, right? So talk to us about like the Cruel Summer, which ties into the title of this episode, which is your truck, and then some of what you've acquired now, because I understand your collection has grown, kind of like the Gremlins, you know, like those things were multiplying.
Definitely. So yeah, it started out with a tan one, and the way that started, you know, I really wasn't looking for a 720 exactly, but I was kind of like, if we're going to get back into the mini truck, to me, that's like the original OG mini truck to me is the 720.
Yeah.
So we found one, and we actually bought it from the original owner. I have all the paperwork that he bought it brand new, the dealer sticker.
Insane.
So yeah, it started out with that one, and then it kind of escalated. Now we're up to 10.
Wow, 10. That's awesome. I hope one day to get to 10 Lincolns. My wife will love me for that. But this is great. When we got a chance to meet up, you know, we've slapped hands and hung out everywhere from Sparks in the Park, which now is every September. Orange Beach Invasion, Mike and John show with their families, Eastbound Get Down. This was at Eastbound Get Down. To me, the slim white wall tire You've got the Cruel Summer, which kind of goes back to, Karate Kid and that epic era. You've got so many little accent pieces. And then, oh, by the way, keep me honest, you did the paintwork on this thing.
Yeah.
It just has that vibe of like, dude, like you see all these California guys, like just these old school mini truck clubs, like cruising out everywhere. This to me could easily fit in right there, and boom, you're rolling with them.
Well, that's kind of what we were going for. We were trying to make everything that could be, like, hang in California. Way down here in South, you just don't see that kind of stuff. Here in Mobile, you don't.
Yep. Now, and Mike thinks every truck is an extended cab if it's more than a single. But as you said earlier, you use the K word, king cab. Yeah. And these trucks are cool. Like, to me, if you look back at the early 80s, you even look at the Isuzu Pups, like with the different roof that they had. Of course, the Isuzu Space Cabs. They have, kind of the odd window. You either love it or hate it. But I love how a lot of these Japanese trucks, especially the early ones, right, kind of coming out of the 70s gas crisis into the 80s, you have these cool windows, and it just has that feel of like a truly different era.
For sure. It does, for sure.
Now, what's one of your favorite things, either a feature on the factory truck or something that you've done on this Cruel Summer truck?
So probably my favorite thing that I've done so far to the truck will probably be the Z-Rack.
Got it. And what I wanted to kind of reinforce to everyone, I showed that photo first, but what Robert was telling me was you recently did this, and that you actually even took off the really rare bumper that you had, but you wanted to do the Z-Rack.
Yeah, the Z-Rack just didn't work into the room that I had under there to make the brackets and stuff, because I extended the frame, I think 9 inches in the back for the pumps to be all up under the bed, because I have 5 pumps under there. So 3 works the bed, and then 2 will work the suspension.
Talk about more bounce to the ounce.
Yep. So by the time I extended it the way I needed to make the bumper work, it just wasn't enough room.
Now, speaking of bumper, I wanted people to know this was really neat. When we were at OBI years ago, you showed me this bumper, and I was like, man, how do you even find this stuff? But it was really neat for anybody that's watching. You'll see it says Datsun of Mobile, and then on the right side, it's stamped Mobile, Alabama. What was the story behind this bumper?
So it came with the truck. I mean, it was he bought it here in Mobile, the original owner, and we bought it. We got all the paperwork where he bought it from Datsun in Mobile. We even have the window sticker.
Insane. And some people get frustrated when the dealer puts their own license plate on it. Yes. Talking about old school 40 years ago. Now, what year is this? It's an 84, right?
It's 84, yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to say, because I wanted people to know, I know it says it's my 84, and I would assume that. But if you think back to the era that we love so much with the Karate Kid, that song, even Cruel Summer, was technically out before the Karate Kid, but most of us learned about it because of the Karate Kid, of course, with Bananarama. And to me, that's really cool. What I want to be able to do is also show people, we'll share a better photo after this episode comes out. But this was pretty neat. Who ended up making this for you?
So I got that for Roxy, my wife. She had that made for me for Christmas one year. Yeah,
excellent.
She helped me with that. That's when she gave me the tag on the front that said Cruel Summer also.
Yeah, and I wanted people to know that what we're looking at here is a t-shirt, and it's pretty cool because you have an image of the truck, and then, if you think back to some of the places that you would visit where they'd have these airbrush artists, you'll see them at theme parks a lot, when they're making these little kind of characters and whatnot. But it has that vibe, and whenever I saw this shirt, I was like, man, what a great name for a truck, just the look and feel of it. But man, an 84, and it ties in the Cruel Summer, dude, that's why you won the OLP award that at that event.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So the way the name was, we kept trying to think of a name, and then I was like, well, maybe we need to think of a song name from around that year. And then one day it just came to us. We just quit thinking about it, and all of a sudden it just landed in my lap,
Dude, I got the record back here. I'm sure my family hates I play that so much, dude. But I'm like, bro, if I got my little time circuits over here, and it just transports me right back, man. It's just, if I had Elizabeth's shoe and I could play some soccer, I would be perfect, man. No. Don't tell my wife though. But give a shout out to I'm gonna see if Roxy can come in a second. But Hunter and Haley, right?
Yeah, Hunter and Haley. Yep.
and they're here in this image. And I think what's important is that you guys have made this a family affair. And, I've seen you at shows, Roxy kind of packing the lunches and you guys getting out there, when we were in Niceville, Florida a few years ago, and just making it something it could be affordable. You guys go out there and you all have fun. And I think that's a really important aspect of our scene.
Yeah, we try to include them in everything, especially the car show stuff, they love it too, and I think there's a picture on there, like there's a pink GT that I built her a bike, and we took it to a truck show, and she actually won a trophy for that.
I think that was probably at Decor show.
Alabama, I think.
Okay. Yep. Now, if Roxy's there, she may make a quick cameo, right, and say hi.
Yeah,
maybe she will. And Roxy, we appreciate you because I know you're always looking out for your fam, and you're a great mom. Like I said, hardworking Americans. And I know you had some dealings with making that showroom look as good as it does.
Actually, I just helped him unpack all of the collections, and then we just decided where all the collections would go. Yeah,
because I see Lowrider Magazine over there, some mini trucking, some trucking. So you've got a little bit of everything, but not too much in one spot, which I like. It's a little, we can switch it up, like museums, right? They got a lot in the back, and we can kind of switch it out. We curate it a little bit different.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Just different theme stuff. Like we have the Evil Knievel, and then he's got like the old metal, like die-cast truck collections and the big construction stuff, and then car show stuff. Like we kind of just wanted to make it cool, so when people came in, like it's a business, but it's like a cool place where people would want to come and be.
Oh yeah. And I know we don't say this enough on our podcast. We've had plenty of ladies on, but I think one underrated aspect of what we all do, especially as a guy, right, is it takes a great lady behind us to either support our habits or whatever you want to call them, hobbies, but also to kind of hold down the fort, right? And like I said, I've seen you at shows packing 100%. The lunches and making sure the kids are fed and making sure you get to awards and doing all this stuff. And I think that's a big thing, and that's something I love about you guys, that you make it this family affair and you guys have fun doing it.
We do.
And it's a huge balance. Like right now with our daughter in competitive cheer, like there's not, and starting in January till May, like I'm gone all over the U.S. with her with cheer. So I love the trucks and cars too. And so we have to find that balance of everything for everybody. And so, this season of life is busy. And so we have to plan it out how everybody's going to get to do the things that they love.
Yeah, for sure. And, with the church stuff you guys do, and I know the gym stuff that you're into and some of the active stuff you're trying to do, and the family, like you said, it can get busy. But, even for you guys to take a little bit of time and sit down with us here. Also, before you jump out of the screen, I know we're also going to talk about your 720, and you've been more than patient. I've seen some of the awesome comments. But you, as a mini trucker, as a mini truck wife, however you want to slice and dice what you do, you're also an enthusiast, and your 720 is on the rise.
Yes. So we're over 3 years in the making of mine, but 22 years I have been promised a vehicle and a custom painted vehicle and all these things. And so when this truck came available, we went and grabbed it, and then the 900 parts trucks that are too good for parts came along after that.
Right.
It's something we've always talked about and planned, and I love it just as much as he did. I just wasn't in that realm growing up. I grew up riding horses, and so it's a different thing.
Sure.
Loving the custom paint, loving just having something that's fun to drive around. That's different. But the thing with this is that it's all my input and his input. Like it's a together thing that we've built this truck, and it's every detail has been planned out with both of us, but not him going, here, I'm going to build you a truck. It's I have the say so, but I have the guy who has all of the skills to make it happen. So.
Yeah, and I've seen you get your hands dirty too. So don't what's the word I'm looking for? Don't understate kind of even your abilities, but I think just having the heart in it, right, is really the biggest thing, because I think the people often say you can fake anything to kind of get to where you need to be, right? We've seen that happen in the world. But I think you're a type of person that you're willing to also roll up your sleeves as a mom, as a wife, and say, hey, I'm going to help too. So we're looking forward to seeing the creation that comes out of 720 Industries.
Me too. I'm looking forward to it more than you.
Well, thanks for making a cameo there.
Thank you.
Yep. So, Robert, when you think about, obviously, what I wanted folks to know is, right, with the family, with Hunter and Haley and the wife Roxy, and the business and the 10 mini trucks and the bikes and all of this stuff, right? Oftentimes I think a lot of us kind of go, man, we're too busy. I can't call my friend back. I can't do this. I can't do that. I wanted people to see also how busy you guys are as a family, because what it proves is that, sure, it doesn't happen overnight, right? But whether it's a truck build or a business or even a waiting room for your customers potentially, right, or showroom, so to speak, it can be done.
Yeah, it can be done, and it is a lot of work and a lot of patience. But you just got to be willing to put the time into it.
Yep.
You got to find the balance to make everything happen.
Yep.
You can stay busy and work, and but you got to find the balance of peace for yourself.
Yep. Yeah, and I made a comment over the summer. There was an era several years ago, and people still say it. They go, "Hey, I'm team no sleep," and I tell people all the time, you don't need to be team no sleep. Like, we all know you got to sleep, you got to rest, your body, right? Don't run yourself in the ground. But I also tell people too, I joke around and sometimes we'll say no days off. Some of the hip hop guys will say that.
Yeah.
And I think some people go, wow, man, you work 7 days a week, 365. No. My motto is no days off from having fun, because like you can go to work and sure, it's work, but you can make it a good experience, right? If you want, you can be positive, right? And then, oh, by the way, the weekend comes and it's fun, right? Some of us have to work weekends. Sometimes we have to work some weekends. But I think like if you have the motto, that positivity, and you balance, like you said, with the family, with the cars, with the trucks and all of that stuff, like you can make your dreams kind of happen in front of you, man. You can call your own shots if you really want to.
100%.
Yep. So talk to us about, I know you mentioned Roxy's, I can flip over and show a few photos of some of the other 720s. How did we start to see the trucks, like Bebe's kids, they don't die, they multiply, right?
Yeah,
720s be multiplying, fool.
Yeah, for sure. So started out with a Tamlin, and then we ended up getting Roxy 1. And it needed a lot of stuff, so we looked for a parts truck. And then every time we'd find a parts truck, it was too good to cut up. So we would move on to the next one. So 10 later, but and that one, we gave that to our son for his 15th birthday.
Fantastic. And you trailered this one to Eastbound overnight. I was thinking last year, because you were like, no, we're still, I was like, they're probably just not gonna be able to make it. They got all this stuff going on. You guys trailered this thing all the way down to Eastbound and Get Down and had a great time.
Yeah. So the story with that, so we were building that. We were doing the Z-Rack on the Tamlin, and we were going to bring it to Eastbound and Get Down. So we get the Z-Rack done and everything working. We can't get the thing started. Can't get it started to get on the trailer. And it had been running perfect prior to that.
Man.
So we fool with it. Time goes on. We had booked a room. We were supposed to be down there Friday morning. We had a room Friday night. So
right, because that's why I was like, dude, this, like, they're maybe not going to make it.
We didn't leave till we drove all night Friday night and got there early Saturday morning. But anyway, so we never could get it running. I told my son, Roxy was out of town. I was like, well, look, we done went this far. We're not going to go empty-handed. We're going to load yours up. We'll take yours. So that's what we did.
Wow. Yeah. Now, what did it end up being something that was simple, like when you stepped away for a day?
Yeah, it was just, so when I came back, it just ended up being the distributor.
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's like you have to, and I've learned this. Like, I used to get so frustrated with stuff, but it's like if I'm struggling with something, I'm like, look, I'm going to step away. And like for you guys, you weren't like, oh my God, let's just throw the towel in. How many people would have just said, you know what, we're not going, cancel the room. You know what, we'll just pay for the room. We don't even care. You had enough foresight to go, you know what, let's still have a good experience.
Yeah, well, my son was out there helping me, and I was like, well, what kind of example would that be if I just give up? So I was like, it's not. We'll just take another one. We'll have fun. We'll make the best of it, and then you'll get to show your truck. So
look at you, man.
We made good out of it. And then, like you say, I was so aggravated we were fooling with it, but I didn't, let him see it too much. But when we came back, it all fell into place. I just got to thinking on the drive back, what could it be? What could it be? And then when I got back in town, we fooled with it. I knew exactly what it was.
Yeah, thank God it's on a newer vehicle, right? Because the older stuff, they're always like, it's Spark. It's either Spark, distributors out 180. Like every show now, like when they cut away to commercial, oh my God, it won't start. It's like, oh, we flipped to 180. Everything's fine. It's like they got to leave the cliffhanger. and that was just your cliffhanger for that weekend.
Exactly.
This is also pretty neat because this photo, of course, is Hunter's truck, old school to the core, but you found this cool dealership where you've snapped a couple photos.
Yeah, so that's a local dealership here in Mobile, but on his truck, we tried to make it like period correct what it would be back then, like with the 5 stars and the scallops and the, the topper, and try to make it like kind of period correct.
Yeah, and you got the sunroof in here.
Yeah, I got the sunroof came from the factory actually.
Oh, that's cool. Now this is okay because I was gonna say is this Roxy's, but you've got so many. I'm gonna let you say whose it is.
So that one is that's kind of like we all just drive that one, but
the beater.
Yeah, it's the original paint, original interior on that one from '86.
Amazing. And when you think back to some of those magazines we talked about earlier, right, with Mike Dominguez, and seeing him cruising around in his 720 that we ended up using on our first major shirt that we did, it's got to be pretty cool that, when you think back to the lineage, to use Ronnie's word from C10 Talk, you think back and go, wow, like, these were the trucks, like you said earlier, that many of those guys were cruising around Southern California back in the day, dare I say, almost 40 years ago.
Yeah, for sure. To me, that just in my opinion, to me, that's like the OG mini truck, really. That's what that's what I grew up seeing. That's 4-wheel drive we actually have. That's kind of like a daily driver I drive.
That's cool, right? Kind of a Marty McFeel vibe. Obviously not a Toyota. I get it. Not, it's not.
Try to make that one kind of too like period correct. I wanted something I painted that on the hood. Kind of wanted something 80s looking,
Oh yeah, this was a cool photo that we showed earlier of the Cruel Summer truck at Eastbound Get Down. Of course, every January, Mike would want me to plug that. Looking great. I want to talk about the bikes here in just a moment. This was one of the shows that you did bring out some of the bikes, which was super cool.
Yeah, I think
again,
Sparks in the Park, I think.
Yeah, Sparks in the Park with the DeCorvers in Niceville, Florida. And then this was the graphic I wanted people to see. It's got this nice, subtle, kind of lowrider / mini truck. Like, this is a graphic that you could go to probably any show and someone's going to go, wow, man, that looks really cool.
So, yeah, so the way I came up with that, I was kind of shooting for kind of like, if you think of like 80s speedboat lowrider kind of, you know what I mean? Kind of
yes.
Picture, so.
Yep. Now, I just noticed this. Actually, this is one of the photos I took. When I was a kid, remember we would always play with these little bikes here, and I see it on the dash. That's pretty neat.
Oh, yeah. It's like it's exact replica of the one that's in the bed of the truck.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And that's so this is a good segue because I think we hit upon a lot of the truck stuff. You and I love BMX stuff, and you were actually good at it, and you participated way more than I ever did. I rode around. My parents have a nice big yard, and that was our sanctuary as kids. We made a little dirt ramp, and we did our thing. We watched Rad, and we went out and tried to, break a bone, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But what's neat is you've got a pretty good collection, and the bike that they see in the back here, that ties into the Stranger Things release that they did a few years ago.
Yeah, that's actually the Stranger Things bike, and I just did some changes to it. And actually, it's a little different that now. Now it has like Moto Mags on it.
Yeah.
But it was the Stranger Things one, and I kind of just changed it up a little bit.
Yeah, and I kind of kicked myself. I didn't crap on that release, so to speak. I mean, I was excited about it, but I had just acquired some other bikes, and I was just like, right now I'm not going to go buy another one. But in hindsight, I do kind of kick myself for not, because, so many guys like yourself, and I've seen, I think maybe even Sean at Rad BMX Builds, I've seen David, I think from the 80s Garage, different guys that have got these bikes and they switch the parts out, and they are good, whether it's going to be a kid riding it, or if you want to bring back some of the nostalgia but not break the bank and go for all these old NOS parts. I tell people all the time, you can get in way cheaper than you think into this old school BMX stuff. I mean, if you start with something like that, you could be in $200, $300, $400, $500 and have something, show worthy.
Definitely. Yeah. You don't have to dump a bunch of money into it. You can just,
Oh yeah. Now arguably one of the most popular bikes of all time, we could go back and forth on this, but you see so many of these guys wanting a quote GT Performer or GT Pro Performer. Talk to us a little bit about this bike that they're looking at here on YouTube.
Okay, so the pink GT, which actually is a 90, so a lot of people say, well, that's not the right sticker pack for a 90. Well, that's just the way I wanted to build it.
Sure.
So that truck, that bike was actually fluorescent yellow originally with like black splatter paint, but I bought that brand new in 90.
Yep. Yeah, and 90 doesn't even get us to the mid-school era. And to your point, so many people think 86, 87. I know I often do. I saw an ad that popped up today from GT, and it was like that bike that they recently put out where it's like all the different colors. It's a 26 or I think it's a 26 or 24.
Yeah.
And the few of the comments on the ad were, "Can you please put out an 87, performer?" And I think like so often people think like, boom, they have the tunnel vision because they know that year. It's kind of like, oh, is that a 64 Impala? It's like, well, no, it's a 63.
Yeah.
But with these bikes, it even proves that you get into the 90s and you still had that same flavor of the mid 80s.
Yeah, for sure. Like I say, I just kind of built that one the way I would want it. I didn't plan on selling it, but
Yeah.
it would probably have been worth more money as a yellow one. But like I say, I just wanted to build it kind of like I wanted it,
Yeah, and this was a photo that we shared earlier, or we kind of showed the photo, but this goes back to the fact that you were even winning awards back in that era.
Yeah, I used to compete in the NBL and the AFA, and I think that one is from '88. I was like the Grand National Champion in the NBL for my age group that year.
That's so cool. And then there's this photo, which I really like, Roxy, when all three of us were talking a long time ago, and she kind of said, Robert's really into this stuff. And what's neat is he kind of reminds me of my friend Tony Boss Bolin, because you've got a good mix of stuff. You do have some larger bikes. You've got the homage bike here that kind of was a little tip of the cap to Mike Dominguez. I think was a slow ride. And then you've got some of the others in here. What is it about the old school BMX and freestyle? I know there's a little bit more to it for you because you participated in it, but why do you think it's such a big thing even for people now?
I don't know, man. It's just like maybe the colors, or the colors do it for me from back then, and just I don't know, just like the mag wheels. A lot of people don't use that anymore. That just kind of screams '80s to me.
Yeah, and I think if you think of like the genie in the bottle, and you mentioned earlier about the mini trucks, right? And they kind of, the colors and things like that. I think a lot of us have gotten to that, dare I say, middle age. And if you think about, like, I thought about this the other day, I've been in severed ties or hanging out with severed ties more than half my life,
That's crazy.
Let's say 25, 26 years, and I'm, mid 40s, right? So you start to go, wow, like we've done this a long time. So I think even for people that haven't been into this kind of lifestyle as long as we have, it's their way to go, you know what, I'm making a little bit more money now. I can afford to go spend a few $100s on a bike. Now, granted, some people are going to hear this and go, well, wow, I just saw a bike the other day for $4,000. I mean, absolutely. There's bikes you could spend $10,000.
Oh, yeah.
You and I both know. But it goes back to that balance word earlier. It's like, do you want to get in with the bike just to kind of throw in your truck, take to a show, maybe let it, ride it around a show for a few minutes? Dare I say, be careful on a 20-inch, because you could get a 24, 26, 29 and have you would probably agree, a little bit more enjoyable ride for our knees and our back these days.
Well, it's just like, for me, like if I want to go out there and if I just look at them for 5 minutes and it takes me back to that time, that's worth it to me,
Yep. Yeah, and looking over your right shoulder, that was one of the re-releases, right? That was the red version that Mongoose did?
Yeah, that is the Super Goose.
Yeah, and look how good that bike looks. You've got that blue and red colorway, and that's what I tell people, that I can go out there and look at my bikes and just have a great time. I recently finally got my hands on and fiddle around and did a bunch of, got the brakes working right and did all that stuff. Actually dedicated some time. But to me, it's also neat because I know you and Roxy have experienced this. You take those bikes to a show, whether they're thrown in the back of the truck, they're flipped upside down like we always did as kids, or they're sitting, laid over on the ground. I'm sure you get a lot of thumbs up and people asking, hey, where'd you get them? And all of that. And it really sparks the conversation from folks from our era.
It does. And people will say, oh, I haven't seen that in a long time. It takes them back to a certain time, and just for a brief minute. And then, as far as putting them in the back of the truck, like I say, being in the seeing the magazines and all that, that's the way I seen it back then. Coming up in the 80s and the BMX Plus and all that, the guys would be hauling their stuff around in the back of the truck.
Well, I know I've said this story before, but when Spring Fling was happening and Planet BMX was, bringing those guys in, and I got a chance to meet Mike Dominguez and I go, hey man, listen, you're not really on social media, right? And he goes, yeah, I'm not. He's a very quiet spoken dude, right? And you probably met him before, but he ends up going on, and I go, man, I want to send you one of these shirts. We did this to pay homage. We had the front version, we had the back version. We put a lot of time and effort into that. Graphic disorder, of course, made it all happen. And his buddy looks over and goes, he's already got one.
Oh, that's even better. That's awesome.
And I was like, dude, I grew up reading this stuff, reading about you, Mike, seeing you on the cover of magazines. And his buddy goes, I bought him one as soon as I saw it. So fast forward a couple years, and I have the screenshot. Eddie Fiola posts a photo. They were at there's a museum out in California, and I forget the name of it. It's
I seen that when they were all sitting at a table and he was wearing the shirt.
Right. Yes. And someone sent it to me, and they're like, look at the shirt. And I just was like, screenshot. I'm like, it's so surreal. And what it kind of reinforces is like when we grew up, a lot of us, like we're almost like flabbergasted when we meet these guys, right? And they're probably thinking, man, wow, and some of these guys, they went through a beating, right? And hitting their heads and doing all this stuff. And whether he's still into it or not, he was there signing autographs, and he was so kind. And I think it's so neat because it's reinforced, like, the Bill Allens of the world, right? Kind of accepting the Crew Jones, fandom. It's like a full circle moment for a lot of us to go, wow, we're meeting some of the people that we grew up that we would arguably say, like, when I became an A-Team fan and I was, Mr. T, right?
Yeah.
But seeing these guys before that, I mean, these were our heroes.
Yeah, for sure. And like you say, to see him wearing your shirt, that's just like you say, surreal. Like,
yeah, you talk about full circle. It's like, wow, So that's pretty cool. Now, we'll start to wind it down here, but I want to just kind of make sure I'm going to go through my list to make sure I don't miss anything. But some of the other bikes, are there any other bikes you wanted to kind of talk about? Because I know in that one photo you had that greenish Haro. That's a super cool bike.
Yeah, so that's Haro lineage. It came out in like 17. So it's like it's kind of modeled after the 87 Haro Sport, but it came out in 17. But this is the oldest bike I have. I'm going to rotate this real quick.
Yeah, please. Schwinn, right?
It's no, man, it's actually a Sears and Roebuck.
Okay.
But it's 1976, all original.
That's pretty cool.
I put the raccoon tail on in the headlight because it kind of was like that. People used to do that kind of style back then. But that's the oldest one we have.
There's a guy locally here that I don't think he posts on Instagram much anymore, but Charlie, he had Charlie's BMX restorations on Instagram, and his lineage goes way back to the BMX museum forums and all that stuff. And he was renting some space where he was doing his restorations at, and there was a guy there, Rich, I think was his name. He had a showroom similar to what you have, and he had all these Schwinn bikes lined up. I'd say 7 or 8, and some of them had the little baseball bat holders. I had never seen one of those, right, in person. Yeah, cool. But if you think about like your dad's era, right, rest in peace, Sonny and my pops, and some of those guys, they didn't grow up in the BMX era because it was like, we're talking like late 70s, mid 70s, right? Depending on how you slice and dice it. So it's cool that you had something even a little bit earlier than that kind of goes back to that previous generation. And being that it's a Sears and Roebuck, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. And actually, Roxy found that for me, so shout out to her on that one.
Oh yeah, you better be updating her binder because look, I got Mike's binder right here, and I'm dude, I've got old school car audio, and Mike doesn't even have any audio visual in his truck. I mean, we don't know what he's going to do, man.
What's he going to do?
So we talked about a bunch of the bikes. We talked about a bunch of the trucks. Were there any other items there we wanted to maybe mention? But I think for the most part, we got all the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, I want to say probably the coolest 720 that I have that I haven't fooled with yet is we have a dually one that's got a service body on it.
Yes, and let me share that photo. Because I'm pretty sure you included that one. So again, if anybody is on YouTube, you can get a kind of a little bit richer experience here. I'm going to try to find it. Really, this is a cool photo too. This was you, right?
Yeah, that's me.
Yep, BMX photo. And I saw the service body, utility body gang, and I probably passed it here. Let's try to find it. This is one of the things when you're podcasting, you got to kind of juggle everything here. Did I pass it again? I know it's here because we saw it a little bit ago. And this was cool. A bunch of photos. I didn't get to show that one earlier.
So that's back when you asked me about the skate park. That's probably
okay.
That's probably the late 90s right there.
The late 90s, and then I think it was white, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's white. But anyway, it was an '84. We bought it from the original electric company,
Wow, that's pretty cool.
and it
Yeah,
runs.
there's let me zoom
There
out
it
here.
was. Go back up. It's like,
Yeah, you know what? I think I was zoomed in too far. That's what it was.
I think, yeah, there it is right there. You see it with my tan truck in the picture?
Right up. Let's see.
So it'll be to my right.
To your right.
I think
here.
this is beside a picture of a white one in my building.
Okay. Oh, right here. God. Okay. So, man, I am blind today. Yeah. So very cool. So regular cab, utility body.
Yep, dually. We bought it
Dually,
from
that's right.
Boyd Electric Company.
That's pretty freaking awesome. Are you going to leave it more a patina type truck?
Yeah, so what we're going to do with that one, we're just going to leave it patina, and then we're going to take the Boyd Electric off and put our own logo and make it distressed, and then we're going to lower it down.
Yeah, you know who did that was Derek from Vice Grip Garage. He had a guy really do a cool logo on the side of the door for him. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, and here's one of the things I wanted to also reinforce is your business, right? And this was on my list, so I wanted to make sure. But when you talk about Simmons Paint on Instagram, that is really under the overarching 720 Industries, right?
Yeah, we actually have Instagram page 720 Industries also. 720
Industries, so people can find you there. The cool thing is you'll dabble a little bit in customs, like you said earlier, but you're also well-versed in the big rig, 18-wheeler, cabs, repair, paint, all that stuff.
Yeah, we do a little bit of everything, but yeah, our main thing is the commercial stuff.
Yep. Very cool photo here. Was that done through a drone?
Yeah, my brother, he made that for us.
We thought Hank Norris maybe got up on a ladder, you know, because he's been known to kind of. This was pretty cool. I don't know if you ever saw this. This was the year after. Yeah, did you?
You sent that to me one night.
Yeah, on the big screen, you know, like when Notorious B.I.G. says blowing up like nitro. This was the year after John had brought this out, and they had it playing photos and different clips from the previous year at Eastbound Get Down,
man,
which was super cool. But like you said, 720, obviously 720, or is it spelled out 720 Industries?
It's seven. How's it spelled out?
Spelled out 720.
It's spelled out 720 Industries.
Yeah, spelled out 720 Industries. You can find that. Now listen, you're a 720 guy, and you have one of these as well. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but I know this is going to be a sore thing for some people because I know not everybody. And listen, I don't always get all the stuff. I try to buy stuff sometimes, and I usually strike out. But I do want to open this real quick. There's a guy on Instagram the other day that opened one, Sinister, and I always like following his Instagram account. But this is pretty cool. How cool was this? I got to give a shout out to Bill from Camp and Drag. He's the one that got me to talk about or to buy into the Red Line Club RLC. And these are like what would you say, like a premium Hot Wheels?
I would, yeah, I would.
Yep.
I would say that.
Now, you opened yours already, right?
I did. I have it right here.
Oh, good. So I don't have to open mine. No, I'm just kidding. So you've got yours there, and I knew that you had scored one. And what I want to do is a little bit ago, my wife brought in a knife because I tried to think ahead and I couldn't. And I'm going to go ahead and open this here. Unfortunately, but this is kind of a cool thing. You've got, you know, all the collectors, you know, you want to have the box in perfect shape and whatnot. And these guys are kind of stuck in here. And then check this out. We'll maybe make this a little reel of us doing this.
Yeah, that's
and
awesome.
This was neat because it says 86 Nissan 720 King Cab, not an extended cab, Mike. They're King Cabs, right? Like Robert said earlier. And then you take this little guy off, and then you've got the truck. The colors are amazing, right? And then I'm not going to open it all the way at the moment, but the tilt bed, right?
Yeah, I'll show mine.
Yeah, because I'll probably end up breaking mine.
So
and then check out the back window.
Yeah, the logo, that's pretty cool. That's detailed.
Look at that, dude. If Mike had one of these that matched the banana hammock, you know how many points that would be at shows, dude? Mike's missing out, isn't he, Robert?
He is.
Now, you would think after listening to this interview that they maybe called you at 720 Industries and says, "Yo, how do we do this, man?"
Yeah, that would be fun.
The 720 junkie. I love it. Give a shout out to the rest of your fam if you want to shout out Roxy or anyone else, the kids.
Yeah, I'd like to say, big thanks to Roxy and my kids, Hunter and Haley, both amazing and super supportive. Everybody is, and I'd like to thank you and Mike. Definitely, man, you've been a big part in our car show experience for sure.
Yeah, we love hanging out with you. It was cool to hang out with Hunter a little bit. It was cool to see you guys at Eastbound. This interview, we talked a lot about, some of the early days of how you got involved, right? We talked about the key word, the B word, the balance, right? And I think that's important, whether you want to go to more shows, maybe you want to focus more time on a project, or maybe, you're like a lot of folks, like even me, I want to focus more on my family, right? But it's that balance word. And it's trying to find it. And I think that's like kind of the secret in life for a lot of us. But we talked about so many cool things. We talked about the old school BMX. We talked about your true lineage. A lot of us were like, I couldn't barely do any tricks. But you got a guy like yourself, Robert, that literally lived it, and you're still living the dream. And you've also said, hey, I'm going to branch out. For the true American dream for so many is have your own business. And that's what you are doing now, and you're showing that it can be done.
Yeah, we just want to, like I say, show people, just anything's possible, because it is some work, but you get what you put into it,
Yeah, that's well said, man. It's well said. The bikes are cool. The trucks are cool. But I tell you what, your family's great people. Roxy, Hunter, Haley, sorry, Haley, because I thought it was two H's. And did you guys plan the two H's? Because it's Robert and Roxy.
Yeah, the crazy thing with that, before they were even born, we had the names picked out and everything.
Look at that.
So,
same thing with your trucks, man. I bet you got the names picked out for all of them.
Yeah, actually, we named her since we've had so many issues. It's her truck's name is financially challenged.
Well, when we got our 65 Lincoln, probably the last car I'll ever buy, my wife came up with the name Rita Hayworth because she was like, okay, well, there was the money. So Rita Hayworth was a blonde, or she was a redhead bombshell.
Yeah.
In that era. So this is a red car. And then also she was in a movie called The Money Pit. So I was like, okay, Rita Hayworth, it has a couple double meanings,
It's perfect with that car. That car's awesome.
I'm trying to teach Mike how to rap with the double entendres. Mike, you can't just be like, yo, my name is Mike Murray and I'm here to say I got a banana hammock and it looks fly. Like, you got to really go a little deeper these days, Mike. You can't just be like, the Sugar Hill Gang was, right?
Yeah.
Roxy, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, Robert. Keep doing what you do, bro. I want to remind everyone, too, we're going to be at the freaking weekend. I know I said this at the beginning as well, but the freaking weekend, 920, 921, 922 in Biloxi. You guys are going to have 3 trucks, my understanding, that are pre-registered. And
we'll have 3 there for sure. And maybe we may have a 4th one. I don't know, but 3 for sure.
And maybe some bikes. Never know.
Bikes. Maybe some bikes.
Much love, man.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having us.
Hey, 720's on the rise. I know Mike Dominguez would be proud.
Somebody needs to do a tribute to that truck.
Yep.
Maybe.
I know a guy.
I know. Yeah, you know a guy.
Much love, brother.
Yeah, man. Thanks. Peace.